I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Where are our prophets now? Where are those messengers God chooses to communicate divine revelation through? In the past, the Creator sent prophets like Abraham, Siddhartha, Jesus, Muhammad, and many more. Maybe our higher power has switched tactics since we reinterpret God's words as soon as the Creator's prophets leave us. Could it be that Spirit talks to each one of us individually and we haven't learned to listen? On Words of the Prophets, our modern prophets show us how to find the internal prophet that is the I Am, and we discuss the application of spiritual principles in all aspects of our lives. Love and light, everybody. I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. And yes, this is different. I'm not behind my desk hiding. I'm out here in the open. Yeah, really. All secrets are out now. Anyway, what we are here to do today, we got a distinguished panel here with us, and what we're going to be talking about is the present and future of congregational ministries. So before I even get into the prophetic topic, I'd like to introduce my guest. Sitting immediately to my right is Rabbi Schwab from Temple Bet Shalom. You could say hi.
Hello.
And then right next to him is Chris Griscom from the Institute of Light.
Sanctuary of Light.
Sanctuary of Light. And then we've got Reverend Brendalyn from Unity, Reverend Father Murphy from St. Bede's, and Bishop Dangaran from the Independent Catholic Apostolic Church of Antioch.
Whatever.
Yes. And we're going to be talking about, and this is probably going to go for 2 shows, so when you're watching this one, know you're committing to next week as well. Today's prophetic topic is all these companions are necessary. And this comes from an old commentary. I want to backtrack just for a second. My first show was a radio show. It was called Good Company. And the name of this book is Good Company, which is the translation of the Sanskrit word satsang. And what it means is that, this is how I pulled this out, and it's systemic steps. The complete sentence reads as follows. Satsang is good company. We get it through the company of holy books, through the company of holy men, and through the company of para-atman. In order that we do not get confused and lost in a labyrinth of ideas, all these companions are necessary. And the reason I chose this was because we're talking about congregational ministries, and to me those are the 3 components that make up a congregational ministry. And we're going to talk about whether they're necessary, how do we keep them going, and where are we going to go into the future. But before we even start with any of the topics, I'm just going to let each person kind of introduce themselves in their congregation for a couple of minutes. So, Rabbi, you want to go first, and we'll just go around the circle here.
Temple Bet Shalom is the original Jewish congregation here in Santa Fe. It's roughly 56 years old and is the only nationally affiliated liberal congregation in northern New Mexico. We comprise about 300 families, and we are a welcoming congregation, which means you are welcome to be part of our community regardless of your sexual orientation or marital status and so forth. We are also the congregation, I think, in the Jewish world here in northern New Mexico that most is best characterized as being a social action congregation. We take the teachings of our religion, we translate them into action in terms of trying to do what we can to end homelessness in Santa Fe and to ease hunger in Santa Fe. And we're out there when it comes to issues of living wage, affordable housing, and so forth that help to make the city a real community.
Okay. Chris.
All right. The Sanctuary of Light is situated in Galisteo. It's been there along with the Light Institute of Galisteo for 25 years. Our congregation is probably a little bit different than yours in that it's very fluid. It's global. People come in from around the world to spend time there on the land with nature. The point of our congregation or of our spiritual energy is that we all have a divine higher self. and that energy is our divine essence inside us. And so, like you, our exercise is to practice divinity and to experience that individually and collectively, and to learn through our emotional body and our spiritual body how we can walk on this planet in our human form as divine beings, and to see that in all others. And so again, rather than what's your sexual orientation or what country do you come from, but who we are as humans and divine beings.
Thanks, Chris. Brendalyn.
Well, I'm Brendalyn Batchelor, the minister at Unity Santa Fe, and we say we're the church different and the city different with the minister different. And we are a new thought, not to be confused with New Age. There's nothing, both are fine, but we are new thought. And we focus on being very practical, having a very practical approach. We call ourselves Practical Christianity. And so we are very non-traditional in our beliefs about Jesus. We believe Jesus was Jewish, not Christian, and that his message to us was that the very Christ that he became, we all have the potential to. And a lot of us just aren't very far along that way. And our mission at Unity Santa Fe is to raise consciousness, transform lives, and heal the planet. So we not only study unity, we study all spiritual paths. We welcome speakers and have guest events that stretch us to not be so just self-absorbed, if you will, so that we can really expand our understanding and grow spiritually as individuals. And we also are a welcoming community. Everyone is welcome at Unity Santa Fe.
Thanks, Brendalyn. Father?
Okay, St. Bede's, depending on who you talk to at St. Bede's, we've been around since 1963 or 64. And we are an Episcopal church, which means that we are part of the Worldwide Anglican Communion. I like to say with the name Murphy that our heritage goes back to the Anglican Church of Scotland instead of England. But that's up for debate, and I've got historic proof for that. But like other congregations, I mean, we come from, the common strain through all faith communities is the transformation of human beings and the transformation of life through spirituality. And we have at our heart, in our Book of Common Prayer, a baptismal covenant which binds people to answer some questions such as, do you respect the dignity of everybody? Do you seek and serve Christ and all people? And we live out that covenant in a number of ways, one of which is through an extensive outreach. Like I think we're the Christian version of Temple Beth Shalom. In terms of our outreach, we have social service programs ranging from right here in Santa Fe to Ciudad Juarez, where we just finished building our 17th house. Which has been going on for years. So, and we also are a welcoming community. We fly the rainbow flag, and let gay and lesbian community know that we're a safe and trusting place. We advertise ourselves as serving traditional and non-traditional families.
Thank you. Bishop?
Geez, part of me wants to just say what they all said, but we're a little bit different too. I like to kid people, we ain't your grandma's Catholic Church. We are within the Catholic tradition. We have the sacraments, but we're unique in that we are a non-creedal church. We do not have a creed that everyone needs to believe in. We're much more mystically oriented here in Santa Fe. Archbishop Gundry, who's the retired Archbishop of this diocese and the former head of our whole church. Our little denomination is only about 50 years old. And part of what we want to do, it's a slogan for our 50th anniversary. We want to reclaim the original blessing as opposed to go toward or even make a lot of room about original sin. We think that not only think, but we experience the wonder and the beauty of the divine within us and all around us. We also are an open community. We ordain women in our church. We ordain gays in our church. We do not necessarily have parishes everywhere. There are some priests who have parishes, but most of us are in different kinds of situations in ministries. Many of us are healers. Some of us are shamans in different traditions. We just consecrated a bishop who is a Mayan priest as well. I was ordained into a kahuna tradition in Hawaii. So there are all kinds of people. We have people who practice or orientated toward Wicca. I think that basically what Archbishop Spruitt, who was the founder of our church, felt was that all traditions have within them the presence of the divine. And he was a widely read, highly educated person, and so he inspired that in us.
Thank you. And I'm here not only because it's my show, but I mean, why I'm here and why everybody's here is and it'll come out as we get more and more into the conversation, but each one of us, our congregations or lack of congregations, like I'm not part, are trying to get a message out. We're doing it in different ways, and that talks a lot about what is the present and maybe what will be the future. So, but I'm going to try to stay out of this, just throwing out that I am not a congregational minister, had the opportunity and said no thank you, because I knew what all these people I've talked to, what they go through, and I said, no, I don't need to do that. So my ministry is a little bit different, and we'll get into that. I want to throw out some statistics, and then I want to ask a couple of questions, just throw it out for everybody to jump all over on them. These statistics are coming from Gallup polls and a few other polls, and it sets the tone for what I believe is the present. The first one is a Gallup report that in 1948, only 2% of Americans reported no religious affiliation, while in 2008, 12% of Americans claimed no religious affiliation. And we all know how much the population of America has grown in 60 years, so that's a significant number, I thought. Then another statistic, American adults who identify themselves as Christians dropped from 86% in 1990 to 77% in 2001. And just the last statistic, from 1992 to 2003, average attendance at a typical church service has dropped by 13%, whereas the population of America has increased by 9%. So before we even talk about what's causing that, let's get maybe some definitions. Let's define congregation. What is it? What's its purpose? Somebody talk, please.
I find, first of all, I'll jump into that and say that the longer I'm in ministry, the more broad a definition I have of congregation. I'm much more comfortable these days with the term that seems to have been more popular recently, and that's faith community. But faith community congregation, nevertheless, you speak for a church like St. Bede's, we have a core group, a significant core group, obviously, that attends church on Sunday. But then we also have folks that will come into the church during the week for a variety of needs. And I consider them as much a part of the congregation. And then there are those folks that you may see simply for a time for baptisms, for funerals, for weddings, and they will come to a church. And I see that as also part of the congregation. So I go back to what I said originally. I think it's a fluid community is what I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it be whoever shows up not only at our door, but we have people that listen to our Sunday message on the web, and people from a distance. I have people that are actually official members of the church that live elsewhere, but are very involved and supportive of the community.
The fascinating thing about today is that we can be a congregation and ripples of congregations from around the world. We congregate. You're using the word faith, congregate by faith. I think that we congregate because we have a need to, in that human way, to together reflect and see each other in a certain way as a part of something that's bigger than we are, and that's a congregation for me.
Okay.
I think that's an important piece. There was a woman in my congregation who recently lost her father. And in dealing with her and her needs and the needs of family, she came to exactly that conclusion, that she now felt like she was part of something that was larger than just herself. But I think there's another aspect to this. We congregate, quote unquote, with people with whom we're comfortable or share some kind of foundational belief, or in a traditional Jewish congregation, you would share certain normative behaviors. Do you eat only kosher food? Do you observe the Sabbath in the traditional way? Those kinds of things would define you as being part of that community. And that becomes important because in the behavior of the community, you know what to expect in certain times and places. But I have a very practical side to this too, which I think my colleagues are really going to love, which is if you're going to consider yourself a member of the congregation, have you paid your dues? Because we may be trying to do God's work, we may be trying to see the divine in each of us and in everyone, but the electric company is only concerned about, is the bill paid? Is the mortgage paid? And frankly, in my case, is the rabbi paid? Which is near and dear to my wife's heart. So there's a financial piece, which is, I think, part of the problem that we have with religion. The great philosopher George Carlin talked about if God was so wonderful and all-powerful, why was God such a poor money manager? So that we're constantly asking for money. But that's a reality. Religion is based on human institutions, which have human needs to keep them flowing. And one of the things that I chuckle about, without real humor, is I have a member of my congregation who says, I don't like organized religion. And I have a response to that, which is if you ever come into the office, you'd realize
We're not organized.
But the other side of it is, he says, well, I'll just take the prayer book, and on the Jewish high holidays, I'll go up to the mountains and read. I don't need the organized religion to get me through the holidays. And my comment is, who do you think produced the prayer book? It didn't fall like dew from heaven. It's the product of the Reform movement in America, responsive, ideally, to the needs of Americans in terms of their spirituality. And I have to say, it is. If he's taking that book with him up to the mountains to read on the high holidays, it's functioning in some way for him. But it's a little disingenuous to say, well, I don't need organized religion, but you use the pieces of it. In much the same way that I got a phone call from a woman several years ago who was very concerned about the massacres in Rwanda and said, isn't the religious community here going to do anything about that? And I said, are you a member of a congregation? She said, no. Well, how do you expect us to do that when you want us to respond, but you're not willing to be part of our resource? It's really pretty hypocritical.
So, would it be fair to say that a congregation, a faith community, is more than just about the faith or the particular denomination? It's about almost family, is what I'm hearing, in one sense or another.
It's about community. I know when we've done surveys at St. Bede's, for instance, of what brings you to St. Bede's, what brings you here on a Sunday, for instance, the first answer will be, I find a community here. I find relationship. I find support. I find friendship. That seems to me to be consistent since I've been there.
No, it's interesting. I just let me pop in for a second, because every now and then, and I won't mention any names, I have periodically on a Sunday gone out to somebody's service just to experience people I've met, and see how they do their service. And in a number of different congregations, I felt like that whole concept of welcoming was way overdone. I was like swarmed over by people and, given a pen and sign up and, it's like...
It's a checking account number.
Yeah, really, and I'm wondering, does that have Are we pushing too hard to build a congregation, or are some places doing that?
I'm feeling quite relieved because I know that when you came to our place, we ignored you.
Which I appreciate.
Well, some of that is what I call organized joy, which I don't particularly like. I haven't liked it since I first experienced it when I was in my 20s. I think that what happens is that depending upon the consciousness of the community itself, you interact in a different way. There are some people who are just in a particular energy where they do want to have more and more people. And they come in and I feel comfortable with that. There are others where it just feels like, and that's just a matter of discernment for me. And I've met individuals that way, and I've met individuals in various kinds of energetics. But my sense is that all of what we've talked about are pieces of what we experience. And for me, the best thing that delineates a community or congregation is the consciousness with which we interact. My sense of community when I was 3 years old was the little brother that I didn't like and the older sister that dominated me. As I have grown through the years, I see that as my heart softens and as it opens up, everyone is my community. Now, there's some people within that community that don't behave like I want them to behave. Sometimes that's my problem, and sometimes it's theirs. But as I go along, a definition of the divine that Alice Bailey has really comes back with more meaning. She defines the divine as that which is the most inclusive. Mm-hmm. I love that. Mm-hmm. And I work toward that.
And inclusiveness doesn't have to be that neediness that you're all talking about. That we're gathering, and why do we do that? Because we say, if I have a number of people in my community, then I must be all right. And that's where we have to evolve our religious concepts there, so that we can indeed commune with someone without suffocating them or smothering them, or doing that because they will then make us feel that we are good. We're good Christians, we're good Jews, we're good Muslims, we're good whatever we are, good humans. But rather to allow a deeper flow between us. Yes, action is a part of human purpose, but under that action has to be something real. And the wonderful thing about humans is that we all know what's real and what is faked.
Mm-hmm. So we've got all these beautiful definitions of congregation. Sounds very attractive, sounds very desirable. Why are the numbers dropping? Are the numbers dropping? Is that what you all are experiencing?
Well, I love the pop culture observation of looking at magazine titles, where we went from people, actually went from life to people to us to self, as these titles come out.
That's good.
And as attractive as community may be, and by the way, I wanted to tag on to you that the idea of the paradigm of parking lot, where congregation or community or life itself is a place, we try to find a place that fits, and then we look for validation before we check out. And it's got to be more than that. And the difficulty is, in religion, organized religion, if you will, there are going to be three things that we ask of you if you want to be part of the community in general. We're going to ask of you your money. We're going to ask for money to support the mission of the institution, the good works of the institution. We can't end homelessness in Santa Fe without money. We need money to feed the hungry. It's a basic piece of it. We're going to ask of you the most precious resource you have, and that's time, because that's irreplaceable. We're going to ask of you to put your time into the endeavor of the community. And then lastly, we're going to tell you, on some level, how to behave and how not to behave. So that to be part of this, and I think this was one of the great ironies of the Jewish exodus from Egypt. We're not slaves anymore, isn't this great? And then God said, you are a kingdom of priests, you're going to serve me. We went from serving Pharaoh to serving God. Now, is that a good deal? Yeah, it's a great deal. But nevertheless, it's a statement about how much true freedom we have in life. And the freedom is whether to be righteous or not. But ultimately, you're going to be serving some master, some greater cause, or simply your own ego, which is pretty hollow, I think.
So are you saying then these drops in attendance represent more and more people serving ego as opposed to anything else?
Well, in terms of politics, I think of Ronald Reagan having taught us that we didn't have to care, and Bush having taught us that it's okay to hate. And I say that when Reagan, opened up the doors of the mental institutions and said, all you people who are in here, you're on your own now. You need to be out on the street. And it was a shift in society saying, we don't have to care about these people. If they have family, it's the family's responsibility. And if they don't, well, too bad. And that lack of caring from leaders of the society, obviously not religious leaders, but leaders of the society, sets a tone. And we get to a place where, I think it is ego. It's me first.
I don't want to get too far off
No, you're doing great.
I don't want to get too far off of this, but which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Did Reagan really do this, or did Reagan just reflect the people who are out there and their own particular ego-based greediness and saying, we're not going to pay for these services?
I don't think it's a question of greediness, maybe, because I think there's another phenomenon going on, and there's been some research beginning in this, especially in England. And the phrase that I'm hearing more and more in some circles is believing but not belonging. That people will express a belief, a religious belief, and yet not feel a need to belong to an organized church. And as I said in the beginning, but you will see them at times of baptisms, at funerals, which are okay. I'm not putting this down, because I think maybe within the Reagan context, this is also true within our civic organizations. I imagine if you go to Rotary or Kiwanis or other civil, other groups, you might find the same thing, that less and less, fewer people are joining. But it doesn't invalidate the institution.
The institution is the alternative, and I mean, as I see this, one of the reasons I do this show was because when I did radio before this was I believed there needed to be a message. I'm not trying to represent any one particular religion or any denominations. To me, the name of my organization, Church of the One God. I believe that in one form or another we all looking after and going after the same thing, and how do we do that is where we vary. So I'm trying to carry a message out there that says, find something that works for you. And I'm not saying it's because of me or any of that, but according to statistics, more and more people seem to be more comfortable with flying solo as opposed to congregational. And the more I'm hearing everybody talking, it really sounds like congregation is important, because we have the numbers, that the things we can only accomplish with the strength of numbers that we can't accomplish individually.
Oh, I think it's very important. I think what we do on a Sunday morning at 8 and 10:30 are perhaps the most important moments of people's lives in the week, of gathering together around the table for a liturgy, to take in the presence of Jesus Christ, to take in the presence of the holy and the sacred in their lives. What I'm saying is, though, that it's a fact of life that maybe because it's a computer age, too, people tend to isolate more. We can sit in front of the internet and browse the internet, and we can communicate via the internet rather than across a table.
You could attend a spiritual service
on
the internet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's it's really important to honor all those forms of worship and not see it as the glass is half empty or whatever, that when people need community, they're going to show up.
And that, again, our relationship to the divine is in community and it's individual. And I think the deeper conversation there is, does it mean if people are going less to the house of worship that they are less focused on the divine? I think it's the opposite of that it's coming up stronger and stronger, that we want to practice it, we want to live it. And I think it's important to recognize that we might come together on a Saturday or a Sunday or whenever it is to together feel that connection to the divine, but we need to feel it every day. We need to practice it every day. And so that one day that we come together to do it, whether it's inside, it might be outside where I am, or however, wherever it is, that's a kind of a kiss, but it's not like this day is the day, because every day and every moment is the opportunity to have that live. So statistics are tricky.
Yeah, I think that everything that people have said here, again, are facets on the jewel of what religion, spirituality is about. We need organized or organizations that can pool resources to meet the needs that are beyond what an individual can do. That's a practical thing. And so I think the rabbi is right. If we don't get enough money in our church, we can't rent the Loretto Chapel to have Mass. And it takes a lot of money. We don't have a huge group, but that's an important thing. We don't get salaries, so a lot of that is taken away. But I was telling Chris at the beginning, in looking at your outline, there is something in there trying to get out. It needs to be articulated more. Maybe we need to kind of hold a point of tension about what that is. One of the things that we haven't mentioned is the fact that a lot of people are not attending organized religion or don't even say that they are affiliated with it, but use the word, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. There is something happening in the world. There's something happening in individuals that feel this relationship to the spiritual, to the divine, whatever you want to call it, but are having real problems with the control issues that most religions are the practitioners of. And you can see it. I was saying earlier, too, that within the Roman tradition, you can see that after Vatican II, where there was this huge explosion of the recognition of the collegiality, not only among bishops, but of the congregations, of the church universal, of people, that slowly, over those 40 years, Rome has begun to encroach more and more and become more and more centralized. The Pope's authority as a teacher it is taking away what the bishops used to have. And so Hans Kung, one of the great Catholic theologians, wrote a letter to all the bishops outlining all of this and saying, you need to get in there and reassert your authority. So there is something that's wanting to have things centralized for various reasons, and there is another thing that is trying to diffuse itself out into the world and the hearts of people.
That's so beautiful. Oh, excuse me.
Go ahead.
That's so beautifully said. And what I would like to add to that is that, we are in a moment of evolution of human consciousness, the evolution of the divine source. And so what happens that causes people a lot of times to say, well, I'm not affiliated or I don't want to be a part of religion, is that they feel their repertoire of religion is what they've had passed down to them through their parents, etc., that focuses on guilt and shame and negativity. Whereas, look here. Look at this group here. You are the religious leaders of Santa Fe. There's not a person in this group that's focused on guilt and negativity. And so it's a matter of educating.
You didn't hear my last sermon.
I don't believe you. You're too funny. You're too funny. Whereas if people could feel that we are moving into this energy where we're coming back to the concept that God is love, so to speak, however you place that, but that there is goodness in all humans, and that that's the way we connect with the divine, and the way we bring it in to be good Jews, to be good Christians, to be good whoever we are, to be good humans. That's the conversation. But people are stuck in the thought form of, I'm going to come and you're going to scold me. And you know, I happen to be the mother of 6. Children and the future generations are not putting up with somebody scolding them anymore. They have too broad of a perspective in
But
terms
the
of the
flip
world.
side to that coin, I'm sorry, I just got to pop in here for a second, because if we're talking about people being spiritual as opposed to religious, then what we're talking about is, because we're in a information age with the internet and all that stuff, that in getting away from religion, yes, we're getting away from that scolding, because on some end there is that, but also are we not getting away from the idea of the master? There's always been a teacher, a guru, a master in every religious tradition to pass along. So it's not about just somebody's ability to read a book and understand the words. It's when we get to those places of crisis, who do we turn to? How do I implement this? It's easy to implement when things are going well. Go ahead.
It's one of the things that disturbs me about this. I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Because what that's saying is I'm doing away with all tradition, all ancient wisdom, really. And you are like a rudderless ship. And one of the things about being in the information age, excuse me, that really bothers me is this idea of the podcast. One of the essential elements of the religious service in the Christian world, that shared meal of communion. But for us, it's the oneg, the enjoyment of the Sabbath afterwards, where the congregation is able to socialize together and share food together, get to know each other. They're not strangers. And when you allow people to tune in by podcast, it's like virtual sex. I don't know how else to put it. You're giving them a virtual experience, but not the real thing. And it is, to me, it's very problematic. And what it comes to is, why are people coming in by podcast?
Well, I'd like to say that I remember when I first found Unity back in Hawaii in the 70s, and I couldn't always get to church, and their service was broadcast on radio, and it was so great because it was the next best thing to being there. But and I've also had people come in, especially what we call next generation Unity, and they'll say, you know, I want to check you out first, and so I've been listening to your messages, and I like what you're saying, and now I'm here. So I think it. I don't think it's like the only way they show up.
Right. The problem that I see, though, is that in some communities, the podcast becomes the way for the homebound to be part of the service. And what that's doing is marginalizing them. You don't get to see their face. And instead of putting the effort into the podcasting to reach that audience, we should be organizing our community to reach out to those people and give them transportation and bring them and share a meal with them beforehand. And that's where part of the breakdown is. The other thing is that young people today consider themselves to be, quote, citizens of the world. So I'll personalize it. Rabbi, why should I donate to your synagogue, which seems to be okay, when I see all this destruction in Haiti? Where should my money go? So we're being pulled in directions that we were not. There was some isolation before. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I think we do have a responsibility worldwide. But there's also a point where you have to maintain your local institutions. And this idea of coming together to increase our strength, I think is beautifully demonstrated with either the Havdalah candle, where we ceremonially end Shabbat, Sabbath, where there are 8 paired wicks that come together, and you get this giant flame that's much bigger than. This is a place where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Or just take 2 individual candles and hold them together, and look at the increase in the flame. That's the model for us in religion. And if we lose that, we're giving up a tremendous power to heal the world.
To speak for the young people, I would say there that it doesn't have to be either or. For example, if they come into community and they say, our hearts are in Haiti, then the community, the Jewish community, can say, what shall we do? What shall we together do for that community? And so then you have both.
Right. If you can get them through the door first to say
Yes.
that. And I know the Reform movement has this is part of a worldwide organization, and it's nothing but net, or nets, a basketball term, but it's providing mosquito nets in communities where there's a lot of malaria, and for $10 you can save a life. You can do so much more of that if you're together in community, and you can make people aware of that. And in the Jewish world, virtually all of the prayers are in the plural. It's we. We bless our God. So if somebody were to ask me, is it really possible to be a Jew in isolation? I'd have to say no, not fully. There are certain prayers that are not said communally unless you have at least 10 people together.
Well, I would say it's impossible to be spiritual in isolation, even though our message is you and your higher self. But the action of that, or the living of that, will always bring you into community or out into the world.
So one of the demonstrations of our spirit, our religion, is our service to others.
I think that people make a mistake in seeking spirituality in and of itself. There's a line in the Reformed Jewish liturgy that says, God, when someone takes my hand, may they find your presence there. And I think when someone says, where's God? The answer is, we have not done enough to make God's presence manifest in the world. When we support the interfaith shelter with the emergency overflow shelter, and instead of 29 people dying of cold, of exposure in Santa Fe, nobody does. We're making God's presence manifest in the world. When we feed the hungry, we are doing that. There's again, in the Jewish liturgy, there's a thing about God, you clothe the naked. Really? I mean, I know there's a label Lord and Taylor, but I really think that my pants were not made by God. But it's through our actions that we make God again manifest in the world, and through that we clothe the naked. We're doing God's work. And I think if you separate spirituality from that need, as I say, we've become a social action congregation, I think you're missing the point. One of my teachers was a chaplain in a hospital. He used to go visit this guy named Cowboy Bob, who wasn't Jewish, but this rabbi would go see him. He was dying of cancer. And Cowboy Bob said to the rabbi, don't think he realized he was a rabbi, but it doesn't matter. He said, the religion that's no damn good on Monday morning is no damn good on Sunday morning. And Friday night then, and Saturday morning, it doesn't matter how you put it. If you don't allow the religious endeavor to shape you, to elevate you, to bring meaning into your life, then you've missed it. And I think there's a certain amount of trust that's involved, and it doesn't come easily. In our society, we hallow the athlete. The World Series gets tremendous ratings on TV and so forth. Those athletes have honed their game in practice and in the season all year long before they ever step onto that field, or the Super Bowl. I guess that's the true American winter solstice holiday, pilgrimage holiday. And they don't step onto that field for the Super Bowl without having done the practice. So we look at them and we hallow them in a million different ways, which is usually the amount of their contract. And when we look at it in our own lives, Oh yeah, I went to church once. I went to synagogue once. It didn't move me, so I stopped going. Really? You know, how much of a chance did you give it?
Well, let me flip this around for a second, because that's some interesting stuff, I believe, coming out of here. You five are wonderful people. I love you all. I mean, you've been on my show, you've been guests, we've talked, I know you, and I mean, and you are, any one of you had been my religious leader when I was growing up, I'd probably still be practicing that religion.
It's not too late.
I know. But let's flip it around. I mean, we have a society, a culture that is constantly evolving. And and I think it was you, Bishop, who talked about we are a more spiritual society. I don't believe that. I think we've become less spiritual over the years, and I'm not sure if that's directly tied into lack of attendance, but I see a whole lot of polarization. So there are, what you talk about, we're an open community. Well, not everybody is an open community, and a lot of people are resisting open communities. They don't see the divine within all, so they don't want to have anything to do with gays or transgender. They don't want to have anything to do with, female clergy of any sort. Isn't these open struggles, or even, what's an ongoing for decades with the Roman Catholic Church? All these things, are putting a whole negative spin on religion. How much of that do you think, this is all theoretical, is a part of what the dynamic we've been talking about?
Well, let me look at it from maybe from a different point of view. and I ask forgiveness of the actor whom I'm about to talk about because I forget his name. We had an actor, a member of the Unitarian Church here in Santa Fe, come to our senior citizens group within the past 3 weeks, portraying Gandhi. And it was wonderful to spend an hour with Gandhi. And this guy comes in dressed as Gandhi, spectacles, as he said, his hair was missing like Gandhi's. And he said, at the very beginning, he said, the core of nonviolence is patience. And he said, imagine if we were patient with one another on a global basis, what a world it would be. Well, I'm sort of picking up on what Chris and Brenda have alluded to, too. What if we looked at the core of our lives as the presence of the divine, and we took the time to recognize that divine within us? I think some of these questions would almost seem irrelevant, and it would transform the conversation, it would transform the community, and by extension would transform the world. And I think part of the failure we're engaged with is this failure to recognize sometimes the divine just within us due to our own psychological, experiential barriers, and by extension not recognizing the divine and the holy and the other. That thought has occurred to me as we've been talking, that I think at the core of all religion is that longing for the divine and a consciousness of the divine.
I was just speaking to a retired Roman Catholic priest yesterday, and we realized our spirituality is absolutely the same. And I was saying that, at the mystical level, there are no religions. Whether it's the Jewish mystical tradition or the Christian or the Muslim or whatever, there are no, it's just, the relationship with God. And I think that's happening a lot. He was saying that he goes to Zen meditation retreats, and I go to Vipassana retreats, and we're all, trying to raise up, because unity has gone from a very me focus. It was founded in the late 1900s, and it was about, growing ourselves individually. And it's only been like in the past 20, 25 years that Unity started reaching out in the community. And our congregation had been severely lacking in that, and we've gotten more and more involved the past year or two. And I'm not real proud of that, but it's like, well, it's when it's time to be, in the world and serving the world, and yet knowing that we do really just have that, we all have that longing to know God.
That's maturity, I think. You know, not only do individuals mature, but groups, age groups, eras evolve. You know, I think the importance of community, if you're wandering around in the desert, is very, very important. What the challenge is to stay connected and open to the traditions while being open to what is evolving. Communication, you know, I remember when I heard that term World Wide Web, all I could think of, actually what I saw was the planet with this web of light. And I'm thinking, yes, that's what we're going through. Again, to quote Alice Bailey, you know, what we are moving toward is being in total telepathic rapport with one another. And we do it in all kinds of ways. I mean, first we throw rocks at each other, then we grunt at each other, and then now we pick up our iPod. So or our iPhone. So we're going from a more material to a less material, more abstracted kind of situation. And so we have great challenges, I think, in terms of gathering people together and allowing this energy of the divine to not just be a super Bayer aspirin. You know, I mean, one of the jokes that I really liked was two guys are waiting and here comes Moses coming down, and one guy says to the other, our headaches are over, here comes Moses with the tablets. So we're moving away from the limitations, and that's always the problem, especially those of us who get really connected with the tradition, to allow ourselves to be greater than the tradition or open to the next set of traditions that God is sharing with us. It is an incredible opportunity. It gets really scary, and I'm just glad that unity has moved from this place of individual consciousness or development into the social consciousness. To me, that's what it means to be human. That's what it means to evolve. And the challenge to churches that are organized and have a set of creeds and traditions is to get locked into that tradition, as opposed to seeing what was behind that tradition. Why did we do this? How can we do it now? So, and I think you're absolutely right when you said before, it's not either or, it's all.
I need to cut in here. We're going to start running down on time for this episode. I guess it's a good term, episode. I want a couple of quick announcements, and we'll come back, we'll pick up those thoughts, and then we're going to do another show after this, and we're going to...
We should have brought a change of clothes.
That's right. I could have changed into my other suit.
How about if we all switch seats and really people will think we're just a whole different show next week? Anyway, just a couple of quick announcements. One of them is that Reverend Brendalyn, Unity Santa Fe, 1212 Unity Way, which is up on 599, the relief route, on Saturday, May 8th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., is presenting a seminar with Gary Renard, who is the best-selling author of Disappearance of the Universe and Your Immortal Reality. He's a teacher in the Course of Miracles, and the seminar is titled, Love Has Forgotten No One. So learn to dissolve the illusions of time and space and return to reality, which is perfect love. And Gary teaches you exactly how to have that experience, which upon the end of your physical existence will become your permanent reality. There are fees for this. I cannot mention them on the air, but call. It is 989-3643, box number 3 for more information, for reservations, or both. And that's announcement number 1. Announcement number 2 is, as you heard us talking, next week we are going to be back again. Same group of people. We're going to get up and move around a little bit, but we're going to come right back. And we're going to do part 2 of this show, which is look a little bit more about the present and start looking into the future a little bit down the road and see what we see happening. Also, this is public TV. This is your TV station. You're watching it. We're here to serve you. So if there's anything that you would like to have me cover as a topic, or you think you'd like to be a guest on this show, My information is flashing, I believe it's flashing on the screen, but it may not be, but it'll be also at the end of the, yeah, well, we don't know. I'm not sure how we're doing this. But it'll be at the end, there'll be credits, and you'll have an email and a phone number if you wanted to contact me. I'm looking for somebody who might want to come on the air with me and do a show on Edgar Casey, so that's one thing. Also, just quickly, I'm a counselor. I do spiritual counseling. And if you feel like traditional therapies are not working for you, give me a call. I work on a donation basis. I'd be happy to work with you, and we can talk about how to use spirit to help you heal. So that's my announcements. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the scariest bumper stickers I've ever seen is one that says, "God said it, I believe it, that settles it." And I particularly find that to be scary and somewhat humorous when someone is dealing with an English translation from the Greek and perhaps from the Hebrew to the Greek to the English, and they're going to know that that's exactly what God said. And I'm always relieved to know that God speaks English just like us white people.
Anybody have any closing
Well, I just want
thoughts?
to say one other thing. We just found out the other day that on May 13, Don Miguel Ruiz from the Four Agreements will be at Unity Santa Fe.
Okay.
And so we're very excited about that. And he's going to be talking about the Fifth Agreement. And his son will be with him as well.
Wonderful. Anybody else got a parting thought?
It's just been great as usual.
Well, hold on to all that great stuff. We're going to do some more of it. Then I'm going to bring this thing to a wrap. I want to just leave you all, the watching audience, with a thought. I think it was Emanuel Swedenborg who said, our job is to be as if God couldn't show up and asked us to take its place. That's what we're here for. We're divine. It's within. It's around you. It's in you. It's, demonstrate it. And, pray about it. Ask for some guidance, because I'm the guy who doesn't have a congregation. I'm the guy who it's not time now to talk about masters and who they are and what they are, but I really believe that that's important. And look for a community. Keep trying. There are infinite communities here in Santa Fe. 5 really great ones here, and there are all a bunch of others. Find something. Don't isolate. Don't be out on your own. It's only going to get you so far, and then you're going to wonder somewhere down the road why it ain't working. So until next week, live in love and light. Blessings to you all. I'm Reverend Phil, and I've been your host for Words of the Prophets. Thank you for tuning in. Please join me again next week, same time, same channel, for more Words of the Prophets.